Howdy everybody, welcome to the Reata Horsemanship Family Q&A Wednesday. I'm excited to be with you. We started a chat in the Reata Horsemanship Family for Q&A Wednesday. Make sure that if you put a question, if you want a question answered and you don't want to do it live, just go ahead and put it in the chat and then we'll take that question and answer it during the live session. But if you're actually live, you can go ahead and type your question in the chat and I'll have Stacy read those off as well. Now there's quite a few questions this week, so we may get through all of them or we may not. And we're testing a new video avenue. We're doing it with my iPhone actually today instead of my computer. My computer leaves a glare on my glasses. We got some input from that, and so I want to just try my iPhone and see how this goes. So Stacy's running it from behind the scenes, so we'll see how it goes. If you want to listen to the audio version of these podcasts, make sure, or of these Q&A Wednesdays, make sure to go to the Apple Podcast link or the Spotify podcast link that I have in our membership at the bottom of the footer of the, it's not in the membership, I apologize, it's on just a regular website. You go to reatahorsemanship.com, you scroll to the bottom on any of the pages, especially the home page, it'll be there, and then the footer's at the bottom, and you can click on one of those to listen to it. Just subscribe to those podcasts, and then you can get notifications when I upload one of these videos, or it'll be the audio of these videos. And then I also put them on YouTube, so you can go to Reata Horsemanship at YouTube, and you can actually watch these. So there's a few ways that you can re-listen to these or re-watch these. We also have them; they're just going to be in the Reata Horsemanship family, but you'll have to scroll down to find them. So if you want them all in one place, make sure to go to one of those other avenues. We had a great clinic last weekend. It was a fun clinic. We had 10 people who participated. It was our obstacles and trails clinic, and we're doing a trail this coming Saturday. So in a few days we're going to be doing the trail ride. But last Saturday and Sunday we had the course, and it was really good. We were able to. This part of the arena was muddy, but we were able to use it at P&M Arena, and they were really. We enjoyed being there. There's a lot of people that showed up, some people that watched, and then on Sunday we actually had a group that was there. There were 42 people in that group at the Obstacles and Trail Clinic. I'm sorry, it was an obstacle. They have a competition. A trail competition for that obstacle course at P&M Arena. So they were doing that, and I hope to start to be engaged with that as well in the future. That course is really fun. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do. We have tires to walk over, different types of tires. We had bridges. We had a rocking bridge. We have kind of a little, like a big divot, a gully that we walked through, and just had a lot of fun. I really appreciate everybody who came out to support us and came out to participate. I think we learned a lot. I learned a lot. I always learn from teaching you, and I appreciate being able to be a part of your horsemanship and your journey.
We also want to give a shout out to P&M Arena for hosting us, and recommend that try to get as many memberships there for people that can utilize their space.
Yeah. So for an entire year, you can get a family membership, a family of 4 for $130. And that allows you access all day during the daylight hours to P&M Arena. They have 2 large arenas, 1 smaller warm-up arena, and a round pen, and then they've got the trail course that you can access. So there's a lot there. Even from P&M Arena, you can cross the street and go out into the desert and ride for miles. So it's P&M Arena, and you can go to pnmarena.com to find out more details. You can find them on Facebook too. They have events every weekend, and we're doing some clinics there. We have another Obstacles and Trail Clinic coming up February 17th and 18th. So that's just in 2.5 weeks. We have the next Obstacles and Trail Clinic. There are some spots still available for that clinic. So we don't take more than 10 people. We try to keep it about 10 people for those clinics, so that, and I have an assistant as well, so we can make sure and give you the most value possible for those clinics. So if you're interested in helping your horse become a better, safer partner out on the trail, and really helping yourself become a better horseman or horsewoman, come to these clinics. You won't regret it. We guarantee it, or your money back. You'll love these clinics. And then And then we do a trail ride, and we'll do that trail ride on the 25th, I believe, 25th of
I think it's a Sunday.
February. Then we have another clinic coming up after that. It's a fundamentals clinic. It's a build the foundation of your dream horse clinic. That's going to be right here at our place in Santan Valley, and we have a limited number of spots there. I think 8 spots. So it's March 2nd and 3rd. We have that clinic coming up, and then we also have a problem-solving clinic in March as well. But the next 2 clinics coming up is at February 17th and 18th. That's at P&M Arena. So if you're interested, just contact Stacy at 480-888-5030, and you can get in touch with her, and she'll answer any questions you have. And even if we've had a question like, if my horse isn't rideable, can I still attend the clinic? Yeah, you can still attend the clinic, because there's always things to learn. You just get really, really good with your groundwork if you have a horse that's not rideable, and you'll love it.
Okay. So last week we had a couple questions we didn't get to, and one of them was, how do you feel about starting older horses?
Okay, that's a good question. How do I feel about starting older horses? As a general rule, older horses retain information a little bit better. Kind of the older they get, the better they retain the information, in my experience. If I have an older horse that has a lot of really bad habits, then that can be really, really challenging to change that horse's mind about his life or her life. So older horses, I have to be a little bit more careful about straining ligaments or muscles, or getting them fatigued too quickly, or I have to be a little bit more careful about their cardiovascular system, their heart, and also their joints. So I love starting older horses, and it depends. What is an older horse? It's all relative. Some people say 10 years old is an older horse, and some people are talking more like 20 or 25 years old. I had a horse that was a few years back that was a draft horse, a Belgian draft horse, and he was just very, very, he'd been used as a cart horse back east with the Amish, and then he was sold, I believe, for butcher. He was
like rescued.
He was rescued. He was in a rescue, and the gal it was her first horse. She got this horse, and he was super, super stiff. He's 25 years old, and he wouldn't respond to the bit at all. Lateral flexion, vertical flexion, nothing. He didn't know how to back up, and he would back up, but only when she was trying to get him to move forward. So I had him for a couple of weeks, and that was amazing, the transformation he had. He was as stiff as a board, because he didn't know how to respond to my cues. And once I started teaching him how to respond to those cues, he got to where he was flexing laterally all the way to his girth, touching his girth with his muzzle, backing up nice and lightly, and really a pleasant horse to ride. And so he had a lot of experience as a cart horse, and because of that, he was pretty easy to teach. Once I taught him to yield to pressure instead of pushing into that pressure, wow, it was a great transformation. So I train all ages of horses. It doesn't matter to me if every horse that I've ever come in contact with needs work. They need help. And so if I can help them be a safer horse, a better partner for their owner, then I'm gonna take them on and help them out and help you out.
Okay, so next question. I know this one comes from Colorado. Do you feed grain or a higher energy feed at the end of a day on a really cold night?
Okay. Because I'm not a nutritionist with horses, honestly, I might have to defer on this question and maybe do a little research and get back to you on that one. I think this one's from Gabe. Gabe, you might have an answer that you would, you might have an opinion about this question. So if it's a really cold night, do I feed grain at night? Grain is typically considered a hot feed, so but if you feed grain, then the horse has to digest that feed.
And processing feed does keep the body warmer, but like at the ranch with the 20 horses we have up there, we really don't implement anything different.
Yeah, I really don't change what I do as far as feeding goes unless they need more calories. So if your horse is in need of calories, if they're working real hard through the day and it's cold at night, once they cool off and dry off, then it's probably not a bad idea to feed them grain. I wouldn't hesitate to feed them grain. That's just with my knowledge right now, what I know, Somebody else might have a different opinion, but you know, there's a lot of people out there that have the opinion you shouldn't be feeding straight alfalfa, but I do to most of my horses all the time. So opinions are like bum holes. Everybody's got one.
Okay. How do we avoid the cycle of horses being passed around from new owner to new owner? What are some red flags when looking to purchase a new horse?
Okay. How to avoid the cycle of horses being passed around from owner to owner? And what are some red flags when looking for a horse? Okay. Horses. I have a little bit of a different opinion about rescue horses than some people might think. Sometimes rescue horses can be very, very problematic. Somebody will rescue a horse thinking they're doing that horse a favor, and then they get that horse, and that horse runs off with them, bucks them off, hurts them, they end up in the hospital or worse. I've seen it time and time again. So I'm not saying rescue horses, there's a lot of horses that have gone through rescues and been really, really effective and safe partners, but they require professional trainers, a lot of them. There's usually a reason why horses are there. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes maybe somebody needed to offload some horses and just put them in the auction, and there was not a real big reason for that horse to be there. Like I had a horse one time that came from a really, really high dollar ranch down in Texas, and this mare was it was a cutting ranch, and so they needed horses that were really quick and really kind of real responsive, almost reactive. And this mare, obviously, she was just kind of lackadaisical and slow, and she just didn't have a lot of go to her. She didn't have a lot of try to her. So I think that's why they got rid of her. So she went through rescue, came to me, and she's a great horse, just a great horse. So, and some horses go through rescue or they're sold because they're not sound. And if you have a horse that isn't sound, let's say you have a horse with navicular, and they give them something so that they're not hurting the day of the sale, and you buy that horse, and then they come back. Now they've got navicular. Now you spend thousands of dollars over the next few years trying to help that horse out because of the navicular. So, just if you're rescuing a horse, just remember there's potentially a lot of underlying issues that you don't see at the onset. So be prepared for those. Be prepared to spend a lot of money and in training and also vet bills potentially.
So the biggest thing I would say is, what about when you're going to a personal sale? And what to look for.
Okay, good question. So part of that question, I kind of got off on the rescue horses, but if you're going to purchase a horse, first of all, if you're going to purchase a horse from like an auction, just be prepared that you shouldn't just go and jump on that horse. There's potentially a lot of underlying dangers and issues with the horse. Okay, just keep that in mind. Take it to a trainer, have them evaluated, have them trained for a couple weeks or a month or whatever, to make sure that you get all the kinks out before you step on that horse, unless you're really good. Now, if you're going to a personal sale where somebody's selling a horse, a couple things to avoid. I wouldn't purchase a horse sight unseen, unless you have a vet or some trainer or somebody in the area that can go and vet the horse, like make sure that horse is legit, make sure that horse doesn't have any issues. There's a lot of scams going on these days online, a lot of scams. And I would say probably at least half of the horse sales that come up online right now, and my friends Rick and Nicole, they would tell me that a lot more than that are scams. So they went across scam after scam after scam until they finally found a horse that worked for them. So you got to be careful about the scams. Make sure you have somebody on the ground or somebody you trust. If it's a trainer you trust across the country, then buy from that trainer. But I would be very careful to not purchase a horse that you haven't seen and worked with. And another thing is once you get there and you see the horse, don't be the first person to ride that horse. Make sure that the owner rides that horse. And no matter what the excuse is, don't buy it. If the owner, meaning don't buy the horse, and don't buy the excuse. We've heard all kinds of excuses. We've heard an excuse, hey, I would ride this horse for you, but I don't want to because I'll want to buy him myself. Stuff like that. Like if a trainer, there's people that will consign horses. If a person's consigning a horse, they better dang sure ride that horse for you. If they're not willing to ride that horse, whether it's a seller or a consigner, if they're not willing to get on that horse and ride that horse around and show you that horse can at least be ridden in that moment, don't buy the horse, period. I wouldn't, don't step into that mess. I don't care how emotionally involved you are, step away from that transaction because you're going to get yourself in trouble.
Yep. Okay, we've got another question here from Jake. I was going to put a tie down on my horse. She really likes to toss her head around. How would you go about that? I'm scared to just put one on and not sure if she'll agree to that pressure or not.
Okay. Jake, that's a great question, and I see a lot of tie downs on horses. Here's my opinion, Jake, and you asked me for it, so I'm going to give it to you straight. I wouldn't use a tie down on her. If a horse has an issue throwing her head, you want to rule out tooth pain. You want to, if you're using anything other than a snaffle bit and they're throwing their head, I would go back to a snaffle bit and work on lateral flexion. I will correct the head tossing. I've never had a horse that I couldn't correct their head tossing by going back to a snaffle bit, working on lateral flexion. So if you're riding her and she starts to toss her head, I'm going to immediately make that difficult for her. Make the right thing easier than the wrong thing, and make the wrong thing harder than the right thing. And so if she's throwing her head, that's the wrong thing. So I'm going to make that harder than the right thing. How do I make this hard? I'm going to pick up on one rein, ask her for lateral flexion, disengage her hindquarters, push her hindquarters around, maybe do it 2 or 3 turns, and then let her out of it. Let her go. She starts tossing her head, do it again. She starts tossing her head, do it again. I'm going to try to stick laterally as much as I can. You can also go with 2 reins and go vertical, but like let's say you're in a tight situation where it's a narrow trail and you can't go lateral. You can use two hands and you can draw her nose down, and as soon as she yields to that pressure and stops tossing her head, give back to her. And one of the things that I found is a lot of people that have horses that have a head tossing problem, they're in their horse's mouth too much. In fact, we had a horse like that in the clinic the other day. A horse that would start to get flustered and throw his head. And once I got on him, started riding him around, I realized that, and I've had a few horses like this where if you get in their mouth too much and you don't release the pressure. See, I'm in horse's mouth a lot when I'm out on the trail, but it's for a purpose. I ask for vertical flexion, I ask for lateral flexion, and when they give it to me, I give right back. I can do that all day long and take a horse that's very stiff in the bridle, and by the end of my trail ride, in the end of the day, I can have a very light, responsive horse. So you can do it time and time again, but you have to make sure to release that pressure when they give to you. And if you do that, then they start to trust that if they feel pressure, they can give to it, and that pressure is going to go away. And so I wouldn't, back to the tie down, I just don't use tie downs. There are certain, I follow a bunch of trainers, and one of them is Chris Cox. I like Chris Cox. He's a no-nonsense, really, really good Western trainer. And he was talking about how even his roping horses, he teaches them to collect, use their abdominal muscles, round that back, and protect their back when they're roping and they dally up. But you'll go to a roping and every single horse in the roping will have a tie down. Why is that? It's mostly to protect their back. So all these guys, if they're not a trainer like Chris Cox and they don't spend hours and hours getting that full collection, then a tie down can be a helpful tool to protect their back, because as they extend their back, their head comes up and extend their back during the dally, that pull is going to jerk down on their back and could cause some damage to their withers and back. So you want that horse nice and rounded and collected when you dally up. So that's why they use the tie down. But other than that, I wouldn't use a tie down. Honestly, I think you should be able to work through that issue. Any horse that I've had that has an issue tossing their head and somebody uses a tie down, it just turns that horse into an unresponsive and dull horse. It turns them into a horse that constantly puts pressure. They constantly have pressure on their nose. And when you pick up on those reins, they stop responding to it. So I just don't like using them.
Okay. So this question's from Bethany. How do I train myself to be ready to train my first gaited filly? She'll be 2 this summer, so we have time. She's a spotted saddlebred horse. I'm used to quarter horses.
Okay. So how does she wants to know how to get herself ready to train her filly?
Correct.
Okay. So I consider a gaited horse exactly like I would consider. I consider training a gaited horse exactly like I would consider training a draft horse or a quarter horse or a miniature horse or whatever it is. I'm going to use the same methods, same techniques, maybe a little bit different approach, but I'm going to make sure that my horse understands all of the exercises on the ground and in the saddle that's going to make that foundation great. And so a gaited horse, when a gaited horse that is well gaited will gait naturally if they're relaxed. If they're not relaxed, that's when they start to get unbalanced and ungated. Some horses aren't well gated, so they might pace, so they might hit a right front and a right hind together, and then they do what they call a pace, so they rock like this while you're riding them. And that takes some expertise to teach a horse to come out of that. Usually when they're pacing, I want to drive them forward, use their hind end, and once they start using their hind end more, then they start to collect and gait better. And then if a horse is trotty, there's ways to change that as well. But overall, if you want to prepare yourself to train a gaited horse, get good at your groundwork and get good at your riding skills, your fundamentals. I teach gaited horses to lope as well. Some of them don't lope very well, but I teach them to lope. So the better your horsemanship skills are, the better your groundwork is, the better your riding is, the better you're going to be for your 2-year-old filly who's coming up for training. That's exciting.
Okay. Now, in the membership, you might want to touch base on the goals and making sure that you can go through all of those goals prior to getting under saddle with your horse.
Okay, yeah. In the Reata Horsemanship membership, so remember, guys, February 14th is the last day that you can get the membership for $1 for the first month and $20 per month after that. After that day, on February 15th, it goes to $39 a month, or $390 for the year. And our lifetime membership goes away as well. There's a lifetime membership for $247. You pay that lifetime membership, you never have to pay again. So for the rest of any course that we make, any videos that we make, all of this stuff that we do, you have access to that by being a lifetime member. So I just had somebody today tell me that she's going to do the lifetime membership because that was an incredible deal. And someday we might do a lifetime membership again, but it'll probably be more like on the $1,000 level, not $147 or $247. Yep.
And so those goal videos, back to training your horse.
Yeah.
If you start in there, whether you're ready to be under saddle or not, she could get started today, correct?
Absolutely. So you can get started today. We have probably about 80. Well, there's like over 400 videos in our Reata Horsemanship membership right now. You can go to the virtual clinic course. The virtual clinic course has something like close to 200 videos in it. There's a goal video. The goal is I'm showing you what the exercise looks like on the ground and in the saddle. And then there's a teaching video where I'm teaching you how to do it. And really, I was teaching the students in that clinic. There's a mini clinic series that we did, and I'm teaching them how to do that exercise. So those videos are in there. So if you go in and you just start down the groundwork goal videos and teaching stage videos, you can learn. Just take one at a time. Learn the exercise, then go out and practice that exercise and do it over and over again. And if you still can't get it, make sure to film yourself. And then we are going to probably have something available in the membership where I'll be able to give you one-on-one consultation about if you're confused about an exercise or struggling with it, and maybe a Zoom call as well.
Okay. In your opinion, should you stretch your horse before or after you ride?
Okay. I don't stretch my horses. That's my answer. Now, stretching, so it kind of goes back to, back around the 80s and 90s and early 90s, stretching was a big thing for people. Like if you wanted to run a race, you want to stretch a lot before you ran the race. Well, they found out that actually with high intensity exercise, if you stretched a lot before you did it, your performance went down and it didn't really reduce your risk of injury. So warm up was more important than stretching. So warm up can be, I do a lot of warm up with my horses. So I do that before I really start to push them. So I'll laterally flex when I first get on. I'll do some groundwork, so I lunge them around. It just depends on the level of the horse, how much groundwork I do. Sometimes I do very little groundwork if the horse is advanced enough. But I want to make sure that their mind is ready, their mind and body are congruent, so that when I step on them, there's no funny business that goes on. Once I get on them, then I'm going to laterally flex. It's not for the purpose of stretching them. It's for the purpose of them responding to my to my rein pressure, to the pressure of the bit in the mouth. If they respond nice and responsive, then I'm going to start moving them forward and do it forward bending at a walk, then forward bending at a trot. Then I start trotting around the arena in bigger trots, and then eventually start loping and doing other things. But I warm them up by doing small lateral movements, so flexion and forward bending.
Okay. This question's a little longer. I saw a post about applying pressure correctly to the horse, sensitive versus needing direction through pressure. I have a horse who is terrified of barrels on their side and big yoga balls. I've tried keeping her feet moving and approaching the object as well as ignoring it and coaxing her through it. She is extremely amped up and just won't think through it. Any suggestions?
Yes, I have lots of suggestions. First of all, I would try to correct this problem on the ground. So the problem is, so you're talking about, I think initially in the question you're talking about a horse that needs a lot of pressure when you're training them, and a horse that's really reactive and sensitive and doesn't need a lot of pressure. And your horse is really reactive and sensitive to barrels and also balls. And I assume that you want your horse to be good at barrel racing. So if she's afraid of the barrel going around the barrel, that's kind of a problematic, right? If you're barrel racing and want to win. So the pass-through exercise is a great exercise that you can utilize to get them used to going past a ball or going past the barrel. And that exercise is really simple. You can find it in the membership, but you're just going to ask them initially to pass through between you and the fence and give them space, at least 6 feet or so. If they're really reactive, you want to give them more space than that. Once they can pass through, yield their hindquarters, look at your shoulder. Then when you point, they come through again. You yield the hindquarters, they look at your other shoulder. Once they're comfortable with that and going between you and the fence and they're not panicking in that situation, it's kind of a claustrophobic issue. Then you can start doing the same thing with a barrel in front of you, sending them around the barrel, sending them between the barrel and the fence, or sending them between the ball and the fence. Eventually, when you want them to stop, like let's say if she's nervous about the barrel, you want your mare, is it a mare or does it matter?
I think it's a mare.
Okay, assume it's a mare. So if you want her to actually really get good at being next to that barrel, then as soon as she starts to pass the barrel, drop your hand. And then if she goes through, point your hand, ask her to yield, then point. As soon as she passes the barrel, drop your hand. Your hand dropping is the cue for her to stop. And eventually she's going to stop because you allowed her to stop. But it might take 1,000 pass-throughs to get it done. And it might take, a week or so to get her comfortable enough to go past between the barrel and the fence. Then you might send her between 2 different barrels. And then you might just set up a course where you can send her through a couple barrels, then around barrels. Once she gets really comfortable with those barrels, you want her standing next to a barrel, and you want to bang on the barrel and make sure that she's not reactive to that barrel. And if she is, don't reprimand her if she reacts to that barrel. Let her move away, but then just move her feet and bring her back to the barrel. Bang on the barrel. She might be nervous about what the barrel looks like, and also maybe she's hit a barrel, what have you. You can also turn the barrel over and roll it, and you can roll it in front of her and have her follow it. Get somebody to help you out so they roll the barrel and have her follow that barrel so she starts to lose her anxiety about the barrel. If she follows it and it moves away from her, she's going to gain a lot of confidence. And you can do that with the ball too. You can take that ball and just roll it in front of her and get her following that ball around. And before you know it, she's going to be really comfortable with that. And then get in the saddle and do the same thing. I just approach a barrel by going left and right, and I make small, it's kind of like a serpentine exercise going towards the barrel. And as soon as they get up to the barrel and they start to get curious about it, I always say this, it's trailer loading 101. If they're afraid of something, you just move their feet right to left until they start to approach that object. And once they decide to approach the object, let them approach it. Let her approach the barrel, sniff the barrel, hang out with the barrel. And you can get really creative. You can do stuff like once she really figures out the barrel's not going to hurt her, maybe put some grain on top of the barrel and let her just eat a little grain or some hay up on top of the barrel, and just get her comfortable with being around barrels, having barrels around her, and eventually I think she'll lose that anxiety about barrels.
Okay.
If you need any help, one-on-one help, we're in Santan Valley, Arizona, and we can definitely, we do half day private lessons, full day private lessons. We have clinics. We can work on that. And we actually have a problem solving clinic coming up in March. It's middle of March. It's around the middle of March. It's a problem solving clinic, and we're only going to take 4 or 5 horses.
March 16th and 17th.
March 16th and 17th of this year, 2024. We're just going to take 4 or 5 horses, and then we're going to address the specific problems each horse has. And you'll find out that we address those problems by building that foundation, building the groundwork, and then the riding if it's a riding issue. But we might have a horse that's extremely terrified of being in a trailer. Your horse is terrified of a barrel. You're welcome to try that clinic out, and it would be a lot of fun to have you there or have you in a private lesson. Otherwise, learn those groundwork and those riding exercises through the Reata Horsemanship membership, and then go apply them, and you'll find that your mare will start to lose anxiety over the barrels.
Okay. This message is from Dina, and it's a little bit of a long one. So, my sister's gelding was a bottle baby, so his skills are slightly off. While he's done fantastic with trainers, they've all said he's a difficult horse to train, and they've all said he's mouthy. Tell us something that we don't know. She's had him for 2 years, and he's always been mouthy. I remember that video you posted recently where you bopped them and get after them when they're mouthy, and we do that, but he's still kind of nippy. Is it a leadership problem? Is he testing us? Okay, and then kind of part 2. It was kind of funny. When we first got him, none of the horses liked him. You could feel the energy in the herd. I'm sure this is because horse social skills were not there. He's had 2 years to figure out how to fit in the herd, and he's learned a lot from the other geldings. It's been sorry, my glasses. It's been fun to watch him change. He's used to being a real bully, but now he has calmed down a lot. But like I said, he's still very mouthy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And does it say how old this gelding is?
No.
If this horse is I'm assuming he's a gelding?
Yes.
Hopefully he's a gelding, he's castrated, and bottle-fed horses can be some of the most difficult horses because they've gone their whole life. I have a horse in training that's going home this weekend, and he wasn't bottle-fed. He actually had a mom. He was weaned at 6 months, but then from 6 months old to 2.5, almost 3 years old, he was in a stall and was really aggressive, relative to most of the horses that have come in. He was always nipping and biting. I had a gaited horse come to me one time too that was very, very nippy, and I would have continued with that horse, but I think he had some neurologic issues. He was nearly falling down when I'd ride him. But one of the best things you're doing for that gelding is putting him with your herd. Putting him with older geldings, putting him, or with mares, whatever it is, put him in a herd situation where they can start to learn some manners. The hardest thing in the world is teaching a horse manners without other horses. So one of the things I did with that horse that had been in a stall for so long, was pretty kind of aggressive and mouthy and would bite all the time, is I put him out with our other horses. And our horses aren't mean, but they're very confident, and they didn't take his crap. And so they put him in his place. He got a good chunk taken out of his jaw right here, just of skin. And that was it. That was the end of it. And now they get along. I put him back in the stall actually after a couple of weeks, and his behavior became much better in the arena after he was with them. So putting your horse with your other horses is a great start. I think that mouthiness will start to really just dissipate, kind of go away on its own by being with those horses. I mentioned in that video, it was one of those videos we put out on YouTube or on TikTok and stuff where I'm holding the horse I'm holding the lead rope, and then if the horse goes to bite me, I'll just tighten my fist. And horses, even just tightening your fist, they sense that energy. And so I tightened my fist and just tapped him in the muzzle a couple times, and then that went away. But some horses, that behavior went away. Some horses who have been bottle fed and grown up their whole life not having another horse to reprimand them and put them in their place, they're going to take a while. So just be consistent about it, and don't just, if a horse goes to nip at me, I'm immediately going to nip back. And that's just using my fist and nip back. And then another thing you can do is just put their feet to work right away. So if they nip at you, push them away, and then if you don't have a halter with you and they're just around and they go to nip at you, bump them and send them around and do some round pinning with them. Do some freestyle lunging or whatever, where you just send them around, push them around, move their feet, make them work, and then let them come back into you, and then rub on them. And if they go to nip at you, put their feet back to work. I do the same thing with horses when I'm out on the trail. If my horse tries to nip another horse, I'm going to reprimand them by jerking on the rein, yielding their hindquarters, putting them to work, doing some circles, loping around trees, whatever it is. Make that hard on them, and then let them come back to the herd. If they'll be good, they can stay in the herd. If not, I'm going to put them to work. And that's what, if you just take that mentality with you, I think that behavior over time is going to go away. It might take some time. It might take 6 months. It might take a year or more. But if you're consistent, I think it'll eventually go away. But one thing I can't tolerate is a horse doing that and not responding in some way, because they'll nip and then they'll bite and then they'll tear a chunk of your skin.
And I think part of that too is teaching our horses respect, teaching them to invite them in our space versus them just coming to our space.
Absolutely, that's a great point that Stacy made. Is make sure, and I teach this when I'm teaching lunging in the clinics or in my private lessons. When I yield the hindquarters to a stop, I don't want them to immediately come in. That's not the cue to come in. My cue to come in is leaning forward and combing down the rope like this. But if I yield the hindquarters and they want to come in and I didn't ask them to come in, I'm going to back them out of my space. So some people have an issue with it. They think they're going to ruin their relationship with their horse if they make their horse get out of their space. No, you're going to actually improve your relationship with your horse. You're going to help them respect you and really love you more if you're their leader. If they see you as a confident and competent leader, you will have a much better relationship. They won't be pushy, they won't be dangerous, they won't be nippy. They'll just be respectful, and that's what we're looking for. So if you can bring your horse in and rub on them, but then when you ask them to get out of your space, make sure they do. And if they try to come into your space when you didn't ask them, put them in check.
Okay, so this is our last question we have for tonight. It's from Heidi. What do you enjoy most about your job? What are the biggest challenges? And how would you kind of explain those to someone who's contemplating a career change into the equine world?
Okay. Well, what do I enjoy most about my job? I had a perfect example of what I enjoy most about my job today. Today was the last session for Willow, a horse that I had in training for 13 and a half weeks. I was fortunate enough to keep her with me that long. I don't always get horses that long. She had kind of a major bucking issue that I had to get through, but I was able to keep her that long. And today, the husband and wife came, and they both rode this mare around in the arena. And the wife, she said to me, I've never ridden a horse that's only been in training for 3 months and she feels like she's been ridden for years. And that makes me happy. Not just that I was able to get that result for Willow and them, but they were so happy. She was watching her husband ride around in the arena on this horse, and this is literally his 6th ride on a horse ever. And this is a 3.5-year-old, almost 4-year-old mare that came to me and knew nothing about riding, and he doesn't at all. He'd only been on a horse 2 times in his entire life, and now he's riding this mare around and doing one-range stops. And she was just in tears, telling me how wonderful it was, how I was able to help them. And so that is what I enjoy most about it, is helping horses and helping people, and really creating that relationship that is safer and more fun, and it really makes a difference in people's lives. When you're not scared to be on your horse, when you have confidence, when you're a good leader, when you learn to be a good leader with your horse is safer, you're safer, and the whole experience is just better. Then that's really what drives me. So my clinics, my private lessons, and the horses I train, and the membership, all the videos that I put in the membership, they're created out of a deep desire to really help you have a better and safer relationship, and I love that about what I do. Yeah. What was part of it? So what's a challenging part? Okay. One of the biggest challenges is if I have a horse that's really challenging and the owner doesn't really understand why that horse is so challenged and why it's taking longer than some of the other horses. that can be challenging. Just communicating that with people, helping them realize that I'm trying to do the best I can for these horses and within the time frame that I have. And I know people are limited in the funds that they have. And we try to, usually in 3 months, 2-3 months, we have a pretty good solid horse, but some horses are just more challenging and take more time. And so that can be really challenging, is just getting to the horses, making sure that I help the horses. And when I have to send the horse home and the horse isn't ready because of a funding or timing issue, then that's really challenging to see. And I always hope for the best for the owner and the horse, but it leaves me feeling unsettled when I send a horse home that I don't feel like it's really ready to go like that horse was today.
Okay. Awesome. I think that's it for our questions today.
All right. Thank you, guys. If anybody put any questions in the live chat, I'm not sure if you saw live chat or not.
I did. I think.
Okay. If we missed any, we'll cover them next time. If you have any more questions, just put them in that chat, the Q&A Wednesdays chat in the Reata Horsemanship family. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a safe week. And Stacy wanted me to say, I always say it, now I'm forgetting what I used to say. I used to have the saying that I said, oh yeah.
Got it?
Be thankful. Okay. I stopped saying it because I was trying to shorten my videos. So make sure everybody be thankful, live with purpose, live with passion, and as always, stay safe in the saddle.